of the hierarchy. Benjamin Creme identified Karl Marx, the founder of so-called communism, as being a member of the hierarchy. And this is what he wrote on page 100 of his book. Karl Marx, the communist, was a member of the hierarchy. Notice that he was saying that the founder of communism was helping direct world events. This fact will be confirmed in another book that Mr. Creme wrote, and I will be discussing that in a few minutes. Mr. Creme repeated the important point that Alice Bailey made. The Masons are deeply involved in the events of the past. Mr. Creme wrote, the new religion will manifest, for instance, through organizations like Masonry. In Freemasonry is embedded the core of the secret of the occult mysteries. So the Masons are right in the middle of this movement to bring the world a new world order. And Mr. Creme and Miss Bailey are telling us that. It is now appropriate to discuss the fact that Benjamin Creme is a believer in a person that he calls Lord Maitreya. Lord Maitreya is the one person called that is the Jesus for the Christians, another Buddha called Lord Maitreya for the Buddhists, Imam Mahdi for the Muslims, Krishna for the Hindus, and the Messiah for the Jews. Notice that according to Mr. Creme, all of the religions of the world are waiting for the return of their leader, and that the leader is now on the face of the earth, and that he is the one leader that all religions are looking for. He claims that he is the head of a group of enlightened men known as the spiritual hierarchy of masters. And elsewhere Mr. Creme describes that hierarchy as being the brotherhood of light. He also told us that he will be the head of a new world religion, which eventually Maitreya will inaugurate. He went on to tell us that the new religion will be somewhat different from what we know about religion. He said initiation will be central to the new world religion. So all who accept the new religion will have to be initiated. But I must be fair to Benjamin Creme. In the back of his book, on pages 373 to 393, Mr. Creme lists the 600 great and good men and women who've been initiated into the ancient mysteries. And it can't be so bad, because this list contains the names of so many of the greatest men and women of the past who've been initiated into the new religion so far. I'm going to give you some of those great and good men and women, and we'll read from his own preparation, his own list of these people who've been initiated. We'll do it in groups of 3. These are the people, in part, of the 600 who Mr. Creme believes have been initiated into the mystery religion. Aristotle, Johann Sebastian Bach, Ludwig von Beethoven, Alexander Graham Bell, the inventor of the telephone, Johann Brahms, the composer, Charles Chaplin, the famous comedic star, the actor, Ralph Waldo Emerson, went too fast there, let's go back. I can't go back. Ralph Waldo Emerson, the writer, Benjamin Franklin, the American statesman, and Danny Kaye, the actor. Also John Kennedy, the American president, John Lennon of the Beatles, Abraham Lincoln, the American president. These men have all been initiated into the mystery religion. Franklin Roosevelt, President of the United States, William Shakespeare, the writer, George Bernard Shaw, the writer. He went on to say that Joseph Smith, the founder of the Mormon religion, Mark Twain, the writer, George Washington, the American president, Julius Caesar, the Roman dictator, Nicolae Ceausescu, the Romanian communist tyrant, Chou Enlai, who murdered as many as 80 million Chinese in the brutal Chinese Communist Revolution in China, all have been initiated. Aleister Crowley, the Satanist, was initiated. Frederick Engels, the supposed father of communism, along with Karl Marx, Che Guevara, the Cuban communist, were all initiates of the ancient mystery religion. Adolf Hitler, the head of the German government, who planned the Second World War that killed 53 million people so that he could create the New World Order. Ho Chi Minh was initiated, the brutal Vietnamese communist who staged the war in Vietnam that killed 56,000 American soldiers and countless Vietnamese, Cambodians, and Laotians. Ayatollah Khomeini, the brutal head of the Iranian government, were initiates. 3 more were Judas Iscariot, the betrayer of Jesus Christ, Nikita Khrushchev, the communist who starved millions of people during the Communist Revolution in Russia in 1917, Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, the communists who planned the extermination of as many as 40 million people in the Russian Communist Revolution of 1970 were all initiates. Mao Tse-tung, who assisted Zhou Enlai in murdering as many as 80 million Chinese in the Chinese Communist Revolution of 1923 to 1949. Karl Marx, the so-called father of communism. Benito Mussolini, the head of the Italian government during World War II, who aided Adolf Hitler. Napoleon, the head of the French government that killed millions during his European war. Cecil Rhodes, the teacher of President Bill Clinton, was an initiate. And lastly, Joseph Stalin, the brutal Russian communist dictator. So the initiation ceremonies that we will all have to take to live in the New World Order can't be so bad, since good people like Adolf Hitler and Ayatollah Khomeini have gone through it before and were initiates. So this New World Order sounds like fun. You might remember that one of the names that I read in that list of the initiates was John Lennon, one of the singers in the rock and roll group known as the Beatles. To show you why he was an initiate, I would like to read you the lyrics of a classically beautiful song he wrote called Imagine. This song was written in 1971 and it is still being played on radio stations even today. This song tells the world why John Lennon was an initiate. And I want you to know that countless of my supporters have requested that I not sing the words to this song, but that I just read them. So to save your ears from environmental damage, I've agreed to their request. I will only read the words. The words from the song Imagine, written by John Lennon. Imagine there's no heaven, it's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us, only sky. So here Mr. Lennon attacks the idea of a heaven and a hell. He is obviously writing about the need to destroy religion, which teaches the existence of these places. He went on in this beautiful song, imagine all the people living for today. Here Mr. Lennon, the initiate, tells us that there is no tomorrow to be concerned about. There is only today. Don't concern yourself about tomorrow because there is no tomorrow worth planning for. He went on to write, imagine there's no countries. Here Mr. Lennon tells us that the New World Order will have no national boundaries, that the world will be under a one-world government. It isn't hard to do, nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Mr. Lennon's song, Imagine. So here Mr. Lennon combines his attack on nationalism and religion. It is unfortunate that Mr. Lennon had not studied the conspiratorial view of history, because if he had, he would have learned that nations and religions do not cause wars as he thought conspirators do. But here he was admitting that he has bought the lie of the conspiracy that religion and national borders cause wars. He went on in his song, imagine all the people living life in peace. These are the only words in his classically beautiful song that I agree with. But his solution to the wars in the world is the New World Order, not exposing the conspiracy that has caused them all. Mr. Lennon's song goes on, imagine no possessions. Here Mr. Lennon attacks the idea of private property. I will show you why this is in a few minutes. John Lennon wanted to abolish private property. He did not want you to own anything. But I have to be fair and give Mr. Lennon credit. John Lennon sold all of his possessions, gave away all of his millions, and lived like a hermit on the side of a mountain in England. He showed us that he truly believed in this concept, that there should be no possessions. What he was saying was that he didn't want you to have the right to private property, but he wasn't about to give up his right to own private property. Just like all of the others who believe in this New World Order, John Lennon was a hypocrite. The song continues, I wonder if you can, no need for greed or hunger, no a brotherhood of man. He wrote, imagine all the people sharing all the world. Here he shows the listeners that he is talking about a New World Order. And he finished with this, you may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will be as one. Mr. Lennon apparently had not thought how he could get those who believed in religion and the right to private property to agree with those who did not believe in religion and private property. Mr. Lennon was a stupid man, like all of the other New World Order dreamers. Their utopia is unattainable as long as there are some men who believe in private property and some who do not. Here is another evidence that John Lennon was an initiate and that he believed in communism. This is the cover of an album made by the Beatles called Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. As you can see, the cover is made up of a series of portraits or pictures of all sorts of people. I once heard that one of the Beatles say that they put only those people that they admired in the scene behind them. And one of the most admired men is in the picture is shown behind the green arrow. And one of the people the Beatles admired the most was Karl Marx, the communist and fellow initiate. The Beatles admitted that they admired the communist terrorist Karl Marx. The Beatles admitted that his ideas were not the most dangerous ideas in the world. They admired Karl Marx, the man who's responsible for the murders of millions of innocent people. They put him in a crowd of admired people. Yes, it is true, John Lennon was an initiate into the secret worship of Lucifer. This is supposed to be that leader of all of these religions, and he is called Lord Maitreya. This picture was taken of him after he showed up in Nairobi, Kenya, in Africa, on June the 11th, 1988, at the specific request of the nun shown elsewhere in this picture. This is another picture of this man who claims that he is Jesus Christ. This photograph of Maitreya was published in the newspaper called The Emergence, put out by those who believe that he is the Christ. Benjamin Creme has been telling the world that Maitreya descended from his retreat in the Himalayan mountains where he has lived for thousands of years on the 8th of July, 1977, and that on July 19th, 1977, he came to London, England, where he is living today. According to Mr. Creme, this Maitreya knows what the problem is. The newspaper called Emergence quotes Creme, or quotes Maitreya, saying that the reason people are starving all over the world is the commercialization created by market forces. He is blaming all of the world's problems on the free enterprise system. Apparently he is unfamiliar with the workings of his fellow initiate Cecil Rhodes, the teacher of President Bill Clinton, who knows that the problems of this world are created by a master conspiracy in the world. Yet Lord Maitreya claims to be God. Yet he doesn't know that a master conspiracy has been planning wars, revolutions, and depressions all over the world. Some God he is. He goes on to write, market forces are the forces of wickedness, confusion, and chaos, and its children are competition and comparison. A little later I will show you that this Christ is a communist. He wants to abolish private property. Benjamin Creme wrote, quote, his task and that of his disciples, the masters of the wisdom, will be to inaugurate the age of reason. Someday soon, on what he calls the Day of Declaration, Lord Maitreya will mentally overshadow all of humanity simultaneously. Each of us, not only those watching or listening, will hear his words inwardly, telepathically, in our own language. Mr. Creme told us how he's going to appear to all of mankind. He, meaning Maitreya, will acknowledge his true status and be invited to speak to the world through radio and television. The radio and television networks of the world will be linked up, and he will make his appeal. By mentally overshadowing all mankind simultaneously, he will come into telepathic rapport with all humanity everywhere, and we shall hear his words silently entering our minds in our own language. Notice that Lord Maitreya is coming to speak on worldwide radio and television. There are parts of the world that do not have radio and television, so Lord Maitreya cannot reach all people at the same time using the airwaves. Then Mr. Creme says that Lord Maitreya will then mentally overshadow everyone simultaneously. If he has the power to do this without radio and television, why does he need to use radio and television? If he uses the radio and television networks, he will not reach everyone. If he can't reach everyone, how can he mentally overshadow everyone? This is contradictory. Apparently no one is to question what Mr. Krem says. It appears that Mr. Krem is saying